a divine paradigm of love and universal consciousness, with your host, Janet Kira Lessin and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Together, we transform the world.
And now, here are your hosts, Janet Kira and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sacred Matrix. I'm your host, Janet Kira Lessin, and I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Alex Lessin. Our producer is Debra DeFranco, and you're listening to Revolution Radio Studio B. And today our guest is Chris H. Hardy, and Chris holds a doctorate in ethno-psychology, a cognitive and systems scientist and former researcher at Princeton's Psychophysical research laboratories. She has spent decades investigating psi and nonlocal consciousness. She's the author of many research papers and several books, including DNA of the Gods and Wars of the Anunnaki, Self-Destruction and Ancient Sumer. Her latest book is Living Souls in the Spirit Dimension, which was published in June of 2020. Dr. Lessin wants to read something before we bring on Chris.
So this is excerpts from Chris's book, Living Souls in the Spirit Dimension. And this book is marvelous. We can all start from the observation that there is another dimension that we have contact with, because everybody you know, or maybe you yourself probably, talk to people who are dead, your mom or your dad or dear friends. And what Chris has done is she has shown scientifically and other ways too, by her own direct experience, that the contact remains between those living and those dead, and you can actually focus on that and meditate on it and make it more powerful, where you're helping your departed loved ones in another dimension, and they're helping you, and they're helping the whole planet. So that's just totally wonderful stuff. And we're going to talk about and give Chris to talk about, what happens when we die, and what happens to our soul, and what's it like in the in-between life when you review your life and all the other lives you had, including the past lives, and what you're tried to accomplish, and you choose your next one. And it's so cool. It's documented by her direct personal experiences plus lots of scientific research. Well, we'll just start with that in the first part of the show. In the second part, we'll kick off some more stuff. Chris, so good to have you back.
Yes, welcome to the show, Chris. Welcome back.
Oh, it's wonderful to be with you again.
Well, we're excited about your new book, and we'd like to explain to our listeners what it's about and your research. Take it away.
Oh, I am a researcher, but I am also a very strong psi person with different types of gifts. So I decided with this book to really look at all the experiences I had, and there are very many of them, like I would say in maybe 150 or so. It's an ongoing phenomena that has been, let's say, getting amplified and more and more clear, the contact with deceased. And they are not only contact with my own family, like especially my father, for example, but also with scientists. I had a lot of contact with them while I was researching for the literature and the research of other people, for writing and developing a theory of consciousness in the cosmos. So I had this very, very special opportunity to have repeated experience of ongoing conversation back and forth on the ability to ask questions also. And so I slowly kind of understood a little more. I'm not saying that I understood. I mean, you can never understand everything, of course, about anything. But it's like I went a little further behind the veil than I would say many people would.
So that's very interesting, because I've had contact with ghosts most of my life. And I know that Debra, her producer, has worked with the spirit boxes. And she did a show with somebody who had a spirit box. So they were doing communication. So tell us about your journey. How did you discover that you were able to communicate with deceased people, and who contacted you?
Well, I think the first experience I had, at 18 years old, I must have said that on previous shows, but at 18 years old, I was starting to read ancient texts, religious texts, and especially the Vedanta philosophy, Advaita Vedanta of India, the Upanishad, and I had this awakening of sort, and then I started meditating. So about 2 years later, I was very focused on meditation, practically every other day, and I went to a monastery with my boyfriend of the time, which was a Orthodox Celtic monastery in Britannia, in France, and it must have been the first time that I saw clearly it's the only experience that I would say those were ghosts, because they were two shapes in kind of white robes flowing around them. I could not see any specific features apart from their silhouette of her head, and then this flowing white kind of robe. And they were high in the sky, like at the level of the roof of the monastery, which was a 2-story building. And they were coming out, certainly, because I saw them, they were like 20 yards from the roof, and they were flowing, 2 of them together. So I had no contact, but they were just flowing out of the monastery on the going. I saw them go in the distance, and so I had absolutely no contact with them, just a vision. Then I had very specific contact with, but very quickly, with Carl Jung. And for something like maybe 20 or more years of my life, the only thing I was able to do in this specific domain, because I was exploring a lot different types of spiritual high state of consciousness in meditation, and I had a lot of vision of I would say the energy dimension of reality. Like it's not only, for example, auras around people, but also a very specific type of field of energy, of another type of energy than the electromagnetic spectrum, around objects, around monuments. I am describing a lot of them having to do with the sacred network, linking all churches and the monuments together on the Celtic megalithic site and all that. I'm describing this in the book, The Sacred Network.
You can sense this energy. You are able to feel the field from those places. Is that?
Yes. I see. You are right, Sasha. It's like not only I see, for example, some light above a ray of light going above a building, like an antenna, at the center of a dome, for example, then other types of curving energy flowing out of the building, very specific lines. They are very, very, like, for example, I can sense 6 lines above a dome, fanning out in gracious kind of curves. But I also sense these energies, especially when I am communicating, for example, with in a temple with the statues, and it's like there is really in also with trees and the lakes, you have another dimension of reality, which has to do with an energy of consciousness, which is beyond space-time, beyond the material world, and which is definitely, now I know, faster than light, on a totally different type of spectrum. It's not at all the electromagnetic spectrum, which is about most of all the energy of our own dimension, of a human and the earthly dimension. And so I had to call this energy semantic energy, and then I shorten it to SIG with a Y, SYG, SIG energy, because you have to give it a name. But this energy is a whole, as I said, is a whole dimension, a cosmic dimension, which are much higher frequencies, of course. Not only a higher speed than light, but also much higher frequencies. It's at the subquantum level, so it's not the quantic world, it's a subquantic dimension, and it is at the same time in each particle, and it is also extended on the whole universe. And this is this dimension, which is the dimension of where resides, where dwells the souls of the deceased, and also a great cosmic guides. So it's this dimension. Of course, it's still. Even if I am tackling it by conversing and sometimes asking questions about the specific experience that the deceased that appear to me are experiencing, and I tackle it also through cosmology based on quantum physics. I mean, even if it is subquantum. It's still there are still a lot of unknown, of course. Fortunately, there are still a lot of unknown.
So what I got is that you and colleagues that have already departed can continue to assist each other in your missions as a team.
Yes, this is very interesting. one very positive and giving us a lot of hope about our future development, spiritual development on Earth, is the fact that they are very eager to communicate with the people still living on their loved ones, still living on Earth, but also as I was so astonished to see really so many scientists just popping up next to my desk, because I'm working since I'm awake in my mind. I am working every night, and more and more late, I must say now that I'm going to sleep. Like I force myself to go to sleep. It's like 8 o'clock, 8:30 or something. So, but I have shrunk my sleeping time also accordingly. So it's like I was very astonished that they would pop up spontaneously next to my desk, and it's very important for me, for the researcher who know about Psy. It's important for me to mention that when I'm writing on developing a cosmological theory, and it was not the first part which was kind of inspiration about the globality of this theory, hyperdimensional theory, but it was 2 years later, about in the phase where I was studying all the other researchers' theories on the writing about them. So the writing was very intellectual. I mean, of course, I believe I have forged progressively a better interaction between my left brain and my right brain, because they go together very well. And what I have as a vision, as a perception, I would say, of the other dimension, I'm able to make the theory about it, to model it, to find some explanation, either in terms of cognitive processes or in terms of hyperdimensional physics. So it's very interesting that it seems what I got from all this, and they are very friendly. They are not imposing. They are not posing as gurus or whatever. You know, they are helping. They are listening. You know, if I have a question, they answer it. It's in a always very astonishing way. It's not. It's like they have access to another type of thinking processes, which is kind of more synthetic. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it perfectly. It's a synthetic. Do you get the word? Like synthesis. It's a holistic, let's say, it's a holistic type of thinking, you know? It's it's like
field theory, I understand, sure.
Yes, it's like if I hear a word, and of course it's beyond language, you know. I don't know what kind of language you are talking to express it, if they need to. But me, I'm hearing it either in French or in English, but it doesn't matter. I can speak French or English, it doesn't matter, you know.
You get the meaning, you get the essence of it no matter what. I got you.
Yes. and it's not symbolic, because it's, for me, it's a whole, a problem I have with, which I, of course, I'm totally involved in Jungian, Carl Jung psychology. But there is one point on which I can throw a better light, because I have had much more experiences of this level of reality. And I must say that when you are at a level where you are beyond language, above in frequencies, the language is still connected to the neuronal activity. It's, your vocabulary and all that. It's all, of course, stuck, also connected to the neuronal networks and all that. And even if you have quantum processes like synchronous firing and all that, I'm talking about a holistic level, which is hyperdimensional type of consciousness and type of thinking, which means that when I get one word from one of those scientists, because it's more important for me to talk about them, because when I discuss with my father, he's not, as I understood it, he's appearing, for example, under the ceiling. He does not know, years ago, he did not know how to move around our physical space. He was talking like as if he was on TV, on a stage, with a microphone, and he was talking like, no preamble. He would talk like, I just had something, la la la. And then when I would stop him and say something, he would be shocked, that I was able to interact. And it's like he was trying to talk to somebody far away, as if it was on a closed circuit television. Do you understand what I mean?
Yes, it didn't sound like
yes.
the same
While the scientists, which were all extremely ascended souls, very high, very fine, refined also, and type of energy, very high frequencies. And when they come next to my desk. Some of them, they enter by the door, and when I see them and I greet them, then they sit. They can sit with me. We can talk for an hour.
Wow.
So
they know how to move. They are dressed, perfectly well dressed. They don't knock on the door. They pass through the door, but then they stop and they wait for me to recognize them and to greet them in, And if I'm sitting on an armchair, I say, please sit. And sometimes I pull.
You give them
yes. One of the first time, I was making the coffee when a friend, who was also a researcher, he was organizing a huge conference on the energetic body, specifically. Michel Berco in France, he was very well known. He was by profession, he had been a surgeon, a brain surgeon, and then he left this, and he started really working on pulling up, huge conferences. The first big one on scientific and spiritual ones. And a year after he died, about 7 months or 8 months after he died, I was preparing some Greek coffee in a very, very small, elongated type of kitchen. which left like only 1 meter, between the gas, the stove, and the sink, and a tiny railing we use as a table with 2 chairs. And I was preparing a great coffee for myself, and suddenly I felt, and I turned toward the door, the open door, and I saw Michel, and I said, "Oh, Michel, I'm so happy." And it was, as I said, like 7 or 8 months after he died, and yet I had no contact with him before that time, because sometimes, especially in my family, I accompany them the other side. I check on them, for the passage. That's what happened with my father, for example.
Right.
And he knew I was with him.
She's in the middle of the story about the coffee.
Okay, finish the coffee story. Okay, and then I'm going to ask you a question.
Yes. So yes, let's finish with the coffee. So I greet Michel and I say, "Oh, it's so incredible. I'm so happy to see you." And he was dressed. He's a normal height, and he was standing, smiling, waiting for me to see him at the threshold of the kitchen door, which was open. Okay, which was always open. And I said, "Well, wait a minute, I'm finishing my coffee, but please come in and let me finish my coffee, and then we will take the coffee together." So I turned back towards the stove, and it was really the end, so I just had to finish boiling the coffee. And when I turned around, there were 2 chairs, and my husband had left me like a year and a half before or something. And so there were 2 chairs. There was the chair that my ex used, and there was a chair I used near the door. And when I turn around, I see that Michel was sitting on my chair, and then so I said, "Oh, please, I'm sorry. Could you sit on the other chair?" And then he got up, and that's it. I mean, normally, there was no way that he could, a body would move while I was there without me kind of holding myself backward so that he could pass, That was such a small place. And, but then he was just poof, he was just suddenly sitting on the other chair. But those things, and then of course I put a cup for him, and I was laughing, and I said, "Well, I know you cannot drink, but maybe you can smell, and it feels so good and so nice to share a coffee with you." That was it. Wow. And there was one other person with whom he was visiting me one summer. He was visiting me like every day. It was like after my lunch, we would sit together, and it was the same. I would put a glass for him, and it was Don Juan. From Casaneda's book, he's a sorcerer. The one who taught him as a Mexican sorcery. A shaman, Uh-huh. And we used to talk every day and also do a lot of things together. So that was a very, very special summer.
So what was he solid? Was he transparent? Because I've seen them pretty, you could see through them, and it seems the more evolved they are, the more solid they can become. And some of them only been able to manifest their head. They couldn't manifest their full body.
Yes.
Saw.
Yes, I must say that even when the person is standing in full head, on fully dressed, on well dressed, nicely standing, like they used to be, very elegant. Michel was a very, very refined person, very elegant type of personality, and refined mind. And it's like even when, for example, Michel, I did not see him move from one chair to the other one. He was in one chair, and I told him, "Oh, please don't sit on my chair." That was a subscript. Please sit on the other chair, because they know everything about you, about your life. So, of course, he knew that it was strange that he made this mistake to sit on my chair. But that was interesting, because it gives me, for me, especially those first times, where I had so clear interaction on lengthy, like we talk like 20 minutes or something.
So let me see. If he sat on the other chair, he'd be like sitting on your ex-husband's lap?
I did not get your question.
I don't understand. I got a little mixed up about the chair that he wound up on. I just wondered, that was the chair your ex used to sit in.
No. I wanted to sit on my chair, which was next to the door, nearer to the door. And when I turned around with the coffee in my hands, on 2 cups, he was sitting on my chair. And I said, please, could you sit on the other chair? So he went to sit on the chair where my ex used to sit.
So you verbalized
where I did not wanted to sit.
Right. So you verbalized it. You said it out loud.
Yeah.
And was he able to speak to you in words?
No.
No,
I don't. Fortunately, for the neighbors, I don't speak loud. This is all telepathic.
Okay, so
yeah.
That's fine.
I would be in an asylum by now.
So my question in telepathic is whether there's a voice that was his distinct voice.
That's a very interesting question. No, it was more like ideas, words coming to me. It's like, I can see the person. So let me finish with the viewing, the visual perception. It's like, I am able to see all the details of I'm talking about different type of vision. Like, for example, one day I woke up and there was an immaterial young man sitting cross-legged next to my bed, which was on the floor. And as soon as I opened my eye, he got up and left. He walked on the wooden floor, making noise with each step, and then he crossed through the wooden door, which had been closed, and it made a very specific sound, which was not exactly the same as the cracking of the floor, the wooden floor. So this man, I could see, for example, all the details and I had time before he got up and left. I had time to slightly open my eyes as if I did not wanted him to see that I was awakened. And then I could see all the details of his hair, long hair to the shoulders, and blondish hair, and very fine head, his the way he was dressed, quite casually, totally very casually, and yet, it's not like you can see through them, but it's a difference with it's like what you see is more like an energy, it's like vibrating. It's not hard wood or hard metal or whatever, or hard flesh, It's definitely, it has a luminescence to it, and you don't see through, but it's not like hard stuff or hard bodies,
Yeah, let me share what I saw.
Yes, please.
I would walk into my mother's room, and I would see her mother. She was talking to her mother. Her mother
Dead.
had died a few months before I was born.
Wait.
Huh?
Wait. You are getting into your mother was dead? No.
My mother's alive. I'm a little girl. I would catch my mother talking to her mother. She never got over her mother's death. Her mother died. I was inside my mother's womb when her mother died. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I would catch my mother talking to her mother. I would come to the edge of the bedroom and peer around, and my mother's sitting on the bed, and her mother's on the far side of the bed away from me, and she's not quite solid, but I could clearly see it was an old woman, and she had a longish dress, and it was kind of the styles of the 30s or 40s, right? Now, my mother was talking verbally to her mother, and then she obviously paused because something was being said to her, and I'm trying to hear what's being said to her, but nothing is being said. But I can see...
So they were talking telepathically.
Pardon?
They were talking together telepathically, but you could see the deceased, your deceased grandmother.
Right, I could clearly see that they were immersed in a conversation. My mother was talking with her voice.
She was talking with her.
Yeah, so that's why I was wondering, when I came up to her bedroom, who is my mother talking to? Why is my mother in a conversation, right? And then I would see this, and I didn't go in, I didn't burst in, I snuck in behind. Her back was towards me, but I could see beyond her she was talking to an old woman who wasn't quite solid, and they were in a conversation. So anyway, that was one thing. The other thing you mentioned is there was this somebody would walk down the steps of the hall, and I could hear I was raised in a 1840s farmhouse, so it had creaky wooden floors, and I would notice the floors creaking, and I'd go, "Who's coming to my bedroom?" Because I had the room down the end of the hall, and then I kept my door closed, and I had a little hook and eye because if I didn't use the hook and eye, it would fly open, and I wanted my privacy. So then this being or whatever ghost would come and knock on my door. And I'd jump up. There was nowhere to go, and there's, of course, nobody visibly there. And then one day, I was sitting on the floor, and I was taking all kinds of Christmas decorations out. It was Christmas time. And I had my girlfriend there, and we heard, there was nobody else home in the house. We heard the floors creaking. This time I had the door open, and whatever it was came and walked right through me and right through her. It walked through both of us. We could feel.
This being, you could not see the being, but you saw the door being open, and you heard the steps coming nearer to you and toward her too.
And we looked at each other because we realized, well, you know, it's like the temperature in the room changes and the energy changes, and we just were wide-eyed in fear and going, who's here? And then it walked right through me and through her.
But wait a minute. What do you mean by walk through you? It passes through you?
I felt somebody pass through my body from my back to my front, and then it went
really?
to front and out her back. Yes, it was, and we stood up and we.
They never do that.
I don't know why that happened. I'm just saying that's
yes,
what happened.
It's a very special occurrence.
Uh-huh.
I can tell you that the aware people in the higher dimension, they are very, very aware of your own, the humans, living humans, field of energy, and they would never cross your field of energy. That's very strange.
That's what we couldn't figure out what was going on.
You know what I feel?
What do you think happened?
My way. Okay. Were you more taken by fear or more? What was your state afterwards?
I was about 12 years old, and we were just like shocked because obviously somebody had walked into the room. We could hear it, we could sense it, and before we could get up and move, my interpretation, which I don't really know what happened, it felt like something passed through me, and then it went out me and into her. And then at that point, we freaked out. I think just the audio, auditory, we wouldn't have freaked out, but it was that sensation of something passing through us that we both stood up and said,
tell me, I will give you my interpretation,
okay.
But tell me something more. What hour was it? Had you been in what kind of state? You were like discussing, you were like preparing to go to bed, you were, or you would.
I think it was probably on a weekend because I was in school at that time. It was winter,
yes.
And it was before Christmas, so it was somewhere after Thanksgiving and before Christmas because we weren't allowed to take out the Christmas decorations till after Thanksgiving. And we were excited that we were going to decorate the tree and.
Okay.
And so
okay.
Excited. Yeah.
A kind of elevated excitement. Okay. My interpretation is this one. It was your own higher self and the higher self of your friend who had kind of gone out of body and were coming back. But of course, this is also very strange because normally but when as a person, when you see somebody in out of body experience visiting you, you can sometimes we have a lot of literature on that. Sometimes they make noise while walking. Also, I have an experience where I had a lot of experiences going out in astral travel, especially 1 year. I was doing that like 2 or 3 times a day, like an hour each time. Sometimes in meditation, driving the whole thing. Sometimes it would just happen that my astral body would just leave my body and I would freeze on whatever I was doing, you know. I would freeze in the gesture, or in walking, or in drinking a tea or something for several dozen minutes, you know.
Wow.
It was very, very strange, like walking on the beach and having one foot in front, you know, and going to bring the second one, and suddenly, plof, my astral body goes out, and I'm stuck on the beach. But I know that was in India. I knew that if there was always a part of my consciousness which is called the vigilant. I called the vigilant, which was there, and if there had been, while my consciousness was gone, you know, traveling to the other dimension, I knew that if there had been any kind of danger around, like very far away, like 300, 200 meters around me, a danger to myself, immediately I would have come back in my body. But I had many, many experiences of like that, coming out, going out, and then coming back in my body. For example, and also sometimes being in an astral body with a friend in astral body, and looking at a scene with the real body of this friend, interacting in some kind of situation, and our two souls, you know, in astral body, watching the scene and trying to understand the emotional setup that brought, in that case, was a fight in a bar, you know. Mm-hmm. And so we were in our higher selves, but in in some kind of astral body, totally invisible, standing up on the side of the wall, watching the start of the fight, and how it went, and what kind of emotion made my friend start to fight with somebody else, another friend in the bar, in a very bad way. And we were discussing about it, you know. Do you understand how it happened and why it's happening? You understand what I mean? The two dimensions are very, very, right. The interaction between the two dimensions of our own self is what I find the most interesting. You know, it's fascinating for me. Like, for example, the possibility. One day I had a dream. I woke up in the middle of the night. It was a big house with a basement, and in the basement there was a heater, a gas heater, and also my ironing place, you know, table. And I woke up in the middle of the night, and I had a dream where I saw that a fire was starting next to the heater. And in the dream, I had to flee because it was going to explode. And when I wake up in the middle of the night, I said to myself, so listen to each detail. It's absolutely stunning. I said to myself, with such a dream, I absolutely have to go to the basement and check, because there must be a problem there down. So I start going down the staircase, the small staircase towards the basement, but I realize that the view, the perception I have in this state, the perception I have of the wall some kind of features on the wall are not going down in a synchronous way with my own climbing down the staircase. And I realized that something is wrong because you understand what I mean. If you are in a car and you should see the landscape moving at the same speed than your car, you know. So I should have seen the wall, the design of the wall moving away behind me while I was at the same rhythm that I was climbing down the staircase, and it was not the case. So I realized something is wrong. I stop in the middle of the staircase and I say, I'm not awakened. I'm still in a dream. But with the dream I had, I absolutely must go to the basement to check what's happening in the basement. And now I'm doing an incredible, this was an effort, you know, it was very, very, I'm striving, I'm willing to wake up. And it needs a lot of energy that on focus, like wake up, and go to the basement. And now I'm waking up in my bed. And I say to myself, with such a dream, I absolutely have to go down to the basement. Now I am going down the basement. I know I'm awakened. Everything is, the perception of the wall, everything is perfect. And I feel my body, you know, because you don't feel your body, by the way, when you're in astral.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Like, you cannot touch your hand, you know, on kind of, hold your hand like that. You will not do that.
That's
and when I get down in the basement, I realize that my iron is still on. Not only it is still on very hot, but it was not back into the metallic case that impeded any problem. It was still on the clothes, you know.
Oh, the cloth.
So it could have taken some heat. It could have started a fire, and then the fire would have immediately gotten to the heater, to the gas heater, and then there could have been an explosion.
Wow.
So this is very, for me, this is what fascinates me the most. It's the interaction, you know.
Do you have any idea what's going on we're coming up at the top of the hour, but do you know the structure of what it's like on the other side? Have they explained to you, or have you gone there to see?
Yes, I've gone there, but that would, why don't we talk about that when we come back from the break?
Talk about that when we come back from the break.
Yes, because it's complex, you know. This is something that I'm working on right now. It's a slow process. Let's say that the most important for me, I believe, the most important kind of conclusion that I have been able to put together is the fact that when they are in this hyper dimension, they are in their own higher selves, and they keep learning on evolving in their spirit, and they are very, very high personalities, highly spiritual, I would say. Mm-hmm. And they are all at this level of, I believe that it's possible that there are different layers of frequencies in this higher dimension. And the scientists, I mean, the most beautiful researchers that we had on Earth, they are of a very high spiritual level, you know. Like for me, they are like ascended masters, you know, like Carl Jung, like Wolfgang Pauli, and all those people I was talking to. Planck, for example, I was able to talk to him. Many of them. Einstein is also very high master of the other side.
Can you call particular ones in, or are they just...
Oh, yes. I mean, the conversation is... my own higher self is always there, dwelling there, you know. Like your higher self, I think the higher self, the self with a big S, you know, of each person is dwelling is in this hyper dimension all the time. And there is no time the other side. So they can interact with any space and time on Earth or any other planet or world, you know, at any time. It does not matter. But it's also the fact that if you are dealing, for example, with their own work or theory, let's say, for example, I'm studying the work of Wolfgang Pauli, then he will be there. That's how we had the first conversation. I was reading an article about him.
Interesting, right. Because then we can access all the genius that ever was and ever will be.
Yeah. It's like if you think about your mother at one point, let's say your mother is deceased, and you think about your mother, your deceased mother, immediately your mother from the other side will hear.
Okay, on break now. Hold that thought. We'll talk about that when we get back.
4 minutes.
Yeah.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Join Revolution Radio every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio B for Momentary Zen with host Zen Garcia at freedomslips.com, the People Station.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
This is the people's war. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning! Warning!
We've got to stop them! They're going to kill us all! See how the trouble you've started? Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of
the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it. Right, you tell them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Revolution Radio. All right, thanks for listening while we took that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And now we're going to get back to your host.
Aloha, welcome back to the Sacred Matrix, and I'm Janet Lessin, and here comes Dr. Sasha. Alex Lessin, he's returning from his break. Our producer is Debra DeFranco. Our guest is Chris H. Hardy. And before we get back to this exciting show, I'd like to remind everybody to please go up to revolution.radio. And up at the top left, there's a one-time donation tab. And there's a Patreon button where you can make a recurring donation. And we do thank you very much for donating, because that's what keeps us on the air. So, Dr. Lessin, you wanted to read something from Chris's new book, which is called Living Souls in the Spirit Dimension.
Okay, this is about the in-between place that you go to after you die, and it's called the Bardo. And this is from Chris's book, page 179. In the Bardo, you can have any duration in terms of our earth time. Souls reflect then on all their actions in their previous incarnation and weigh them in light of their overall spiritual aim in the long journey toward full enlightenment. The soul will ponder what their last life added as knowledge and experience to their previous incarnations, and how the ego has met the challenges that the soul had selected for them to meet in their lifetime before they were born in the previous Bardo state. The self of the person is the oversoul, the guiding spirit both in their earthly lives and in the beyond and beyond the Bardo or in between, as a lower layer of cosmic consciousness. The soul or self is assisted in weighing its ego's past deeds and in all its decisions regarding the next life experience by other souls, some of a higher order and some belonging to the same group soul, a group cell being a higher overall soul, oversoul that comprises and guides many egos in incarnation, impervious to time and space. This is just a sample of this amazing book. I'm telling you, you really want to see the journey your soul's got on. You got to get Living Souls in the Spirit Dimension. I mean, it's really got it all.
Back to you, Chris.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you so much to have read this, Sasha. It's also something we can talk about, is this very interesting facet, the fact that we have, not only we have so our ego here on Earth, with emotion and our needs, our bodies and our neuronal networks and our connection, let's say, with our higher self. And we have, above the ego, we have the higher self, which is, you can call the soul or the Atman, or the monad. It's the part of our being which is dwelling, as I said before, in the hyper dimension, and with an immaterial body, which is an immaterial field of energy, which is a very complex semantic field, I call them, which has all the consciousness of all the egos that have been incarnated, all the past incarnation of this specific soul. Now, there is also an intermediary, and this is, let's say, tentative, okay? I'm absolutely sure about the higher self. I will talk later about the group soul, which I am absolutely sure also of its existence, because I had many experiences that show me a different facet of this reality. So those different facets gives me some the more facets I have been able to see about specific phenomena, and the more I am convinced of the reality, on the way I understand this specific reality, entity, let's say. So, tentatively, I would say that there is, because I still have a problem trying to understand the astral body, and it seems like the astral body is a kind of intermediary layer, which of course is linked to the chakra, the energy of the chakra, creating the hyperdimensional aura. I'm sorry for those terms, but it's like the energy is definitely belonging to another dimension in terms of frequency and speed and everything. So the astral body is like not only linked to the chakra, created by the field created by the chakras on their different type of level of activity and opening and all that. And this specific astral body, the chi, you know, or the ki in martial arts, and this specific body has the perfect shape of the material body, the biological body, but it is carrying, let's say, the consciousness, the higher self. The higher self is able to use it, and this astral body can exit the corporeal, our corporeal entity, our bodies, and travel very far away. I had those experiences when, in my first travel to India, when I was 21 years old. I was there a year and a half about, and I started having those astral travel, out of body experiences earlier, like when I was 19, sorry. But then when I started to travel, when I reached, I was halfway, and I met a Sufi master with whom I stayed for a few months. And at that point in my meditation, I reached the opening of the head chakra, and I was able to exit willingly with my astral body while in meditation. I mean, absolutely sitting in a perfect lotus position, and willingly I would exit from the head chakra, which was just opening. So at the moment the top of the head chakra, the lotus, 1,000 petal lotus open, you are able to exit from that point. But before that, you can exit from other ways. I don't know because I have not specifically seen. Yes, I have seen in dreams. I have seen the process. Sometimes, like even taking fun in how you can get in and out of your body while you are sleeping. You know, while you are sleeping, your astral body is traveling. For most people, we are all able to do that. And that's the dreams where you think you dreamt about flying, you know, and in fact, it's a real astral travel that you have done. So every night we kind of go with our astral bodies and we go back to our higher self dimension, you know, on see what's happening there and taking some more resolve and energy and good energy to help us in our lives. So there is still a problem for me about what is exactly the type of energy, the consistency of this astral body. It's not the higher self in the hyperdimension. It seems to be like a lower level of frequency of the hyperdimension, which would then be layered, you know. Mm-hmm. With souls, when they are in the Bardo, in the hyperdimension, souls are would be, because I'm not sure, that's what I say, it's tentative, would be at lower in a lower dimension, depending on the kind of spiritual development they have achieved in their lives.
So have you met a lot of the beings that are in the Bardo level? Or some of them, have you met people that are in the Bardo?
Well, for me, I don't use those words so much because, but it was a real problem that I had also a question mark that I had to kind of ponder, because the question mark was that if the souls are really, I'm sure of that also, are really staying some time, not a specific time period for everybody, but the time they need to, at the same time, go over their past incarnations, the latest one, and then the other ones before, and see what they have achieved, as in the little text that Sasha read earlier, you know. They ponder and they get the substance, the essence of what they have achieved and what they have not achieved, what they could have achieved but they missed it, and what they did that was overachievement, I would say, and they ponder on that, and then they decide themselves, your higher soul is going to decide for oneself if you want to what kind of incarnation you want to have, where, when, what do you want to learn and achieve, and what are the kind of factors you need to have, and then I believe you choose your family, and of course you are helped, as Sasha read it, you are helped by higher souls. But this is, I believe, for, I don't know. I mean, it's not everybody does not have to reincarnate. Now, there was still a logical problem, which of course is always very tricky, because the logic of the hyperdimension is not the logic of the material dimension. So when you have a logical problem, it has to do with the hyperdimension. You should not look for a stupid, rational, logical answer. You have to
paradox. Accept the paradox.
Yes, you have to wait. You have to open yourself to, first of all, to the paradoxical reality, and you have to open yourself to cognitive dissonance, the fact that it's not the way you believe it should be in your little rationality. But also you have to open yourself to have the intuition and to ask for the intuition or the vision of what could be the answer. So that's the big question, rational question my logical rationality logical mind had, was that if people are reincarnating after a few months or a year or 2 years, I would say maximum, to get another type of experience in order to learn more, who was I talking to when I'm talking to anybody who has lived? I can get in contact with them. So are they not? They are not reincarnated? How is it happening? And the kind of solution, tentative answer to that is the fact that our higher being, our higher self, our spirit, hyperdimensional spirit, is always dwelling in this hyperdimension where there is no time and space. So even if, let's take an example, even if Wolfgang Pauli, for example, the Nobel Prize quantum physicist, even with whom I talk very often, even if he was reincarnated in another body, another time, another country, or maybe planet, even if he was reincarnated somewhere in time and space, his higher dimension would still be there, and I would still be able to contact him on kind of visualizing him as the person I know from the photos, Right. But when I discussed with him, he was just a blob of light or of energy, in an apple tree. He did not take any appearance of a body. Only at the end of the conversation he did that.
So this is very different than the archetype. It's not indwelling in you. It's something external to you. Do I got you right?
Well, archetypes, it's a whole other question. It so happens that I'm constantly going back to Carl Jung, in fact, in the last 2 months, I have been reading again psychology and alchemy, and it's like I got on a passage on some kind of excerpt from the book where he's definitely making identifying the archetype with the higher self.
Yeah.
And in another page somewhere else is also identifying the archetype with Christ, and with in Alchemia, who was called the Anthropos. Anthropos is the God man, the divine man, the divine archetype of man, which of course is also Christ. Okay, so it's like your higher self is an archetype in some way.
Yeah.
And then you have some kind of the humanity as a whole. Its archetype is the divine man, so to speak.
Got it. So what's interesting to me is that all of this functioning of the dimensions all add up to something very, very positive, that we are evolving, that our access to the other dimension is enhancing it and us and the whole everything.
Yes. This is very interesting because it has been the perspective taken by all Eastern religions. They all believe, when I say Eastern religions, I'm talking about Hinduism, Buddhism, that originated in India with an Indian spiritual master, and all the other ones, Jainism, Baha'ism, Taoism, etc. So what you have in those Eastern religions is what they have, all of them in common, the chakra, the knowledge of the chakra. Even if you don't have the same number, you have seven in Hinduism, and you have 8 with the hara in Asia, Asiatic yoga, and and in martial art you use especially the hara. But they have also the medical, the energy body, the energy, the higher energy, which is not the matter energy, it's the chi and the ki. You have also the belief in reincarnation on a kind of dimension above the material universe, and you have this in all Eastern religions. So you have this, and also when they talk about reincarnation, you find in all of these religions, you find the belief that the whole process of being reincarnated in a body, which is it's not when you are reincarnated human body, it's an incredible opportunity for advancement, which is even a better opportunity than to be incarnated in a god as a god. It's very interesting. It's like it's for me. I'm very fascinated. This exploration, let's say, of this higher dimension is my life. Simple. And
I think guiding us, that your explorations show us a path.
Yes, absolutely. So the essential point is the fact that the reincarnation process is a process of evolution, of spiritual evolution, and the Hindu are very clear. They say that you will be reincarnated on the Buddhism also, Tibetan Buddhism. You will be reincarnated. You will need to reincarnate until you reach the perfect enlightenment. And in the Tibetan Buddhism, once you reach the state of enlightenment, you either choose to remain on earth as a bodhisattva to help other beings move forward, or you can decide to pass into the higher dimension and stay there as a Buddha. You know, you have thousands of Buddha. Yep. The Buddhas are the beings who have achieved this enlightenment, I prefer the term enlightenment is too big a word. I prefer the term liberation. It's a liberation state, moksha in Hinduism.
So what stops you from going that path is you determine that you haven't fulfilled whatever you had agreed to do, and so you might choose a really terrible incarnation, a very difficult one to finally.
Yes.
It isn't necessarily a pleasant one until you really have resolved it all.
Well, I must say that if you were to choose, for example, an incarnation in a person who has in a family having a lot of money, and you have absolutely nothing to do because everything is done for you, like you are the son of a very rich person, then you may not learn anything, and you may even retrograde, if I'm not sure the word exists in English, to walk backward.
No, it's English. Regress.
To regress or to devolve.
Yeah. Beardsley called it devolving, yeah.
As we see.
Okay.
Yes.
So you choose a difficult one so you can finally learn it, and then you can go to the next stage where you can choose to either be a bodhisattva or go even higher than that as part of the group. Here, I get these teams, like whole teams of souls that are working toward peace and harmony and end to suffering. That's what the picture I get from your book.
Yes. It's like at the level of. So I have not found the group soul, which is a simple term. The group soul, I saw its structure as a kind of diamond with something like 100 or 120 facets. And I must say that I was in a trip, acid trip, the first LSD trip, the first time I saw that. And I had taken this with a friend I did not know even few hours before, and he offered me this, and I said, okay, I would like to do that, but only in my own place. So if you want to come to spend some time with me in my place, then we can take it together. He was a nice man. So what happened is that after some time, as everybody knows, I got into a state where I was in Samadhi, which is a state of absolute void, with no duration and no content of consciousness, no thoughts, but only pure consciousness in a kind of no time, no space, but nobody either. No, you understand what I mean? It was like
I know exactly
yes.
what you mean.
Yes, it's one type of samadhi, the void state, which is not void of consciousness, but void of specific thoughts, So I was in that state, and it's like as if you were bathing in the sun, with absolutely clear consciousness, on the kind of extreme extension in a pseudo space, but it's the way you feel you have no limit to your consciousness. But nobody is there as specific entities. So you are in that state, void state, and time passes, you don't see it passing, but on top of that I was in a trip. So suddenly at one point I heard, this is a very incredible experience. I was like, 24, 25 or something. I was working at a record place at the time, he was a customer of that big store. Okay, so I was in that state, and suddenly I heard. So if you remember, some of us will remember the sound, and of course the DG also will know the sound that makes when you have a record player, the old plastic record players.
Uh-huh.
And when you have the needle, and you slow down like your hi-fi is not working well, and suddenly it's stopping, the engine is gone, so it goes, or the electricity is gone, so it keeps rolling slower and slower, and it goes like and I was in that absolute state of light, let's say, and I heard that sound, and then I saw where I was, because suddenly I saw that I was sitting at the tip of this immense crystal with 3 rows of facets, and then a flat bottom, and it's like I cocked my ear, and I realized that the sound was coming from a tiny facet which was on the bottom row, on the right in my vision. The thing was round and flat on with all those facets like a crystal, and so I cocked my ear like this to try to understand, to get in touch with this little facet, and I jump 1 row, and there were 3 rows in those big rows. There were huge rows, and then 3 for each one. And then I jump like this, 1, 2, 3, and I get into this tiny facet, and I kind of, again, stretch my ear to kind of get in contact with this tiny facet, and then I say, "What did you say?" And the guy said, "Do you go often to cinema? Do you go often to watch a movie?" And I cannot believe what I hear. It was so stupid, in my story. And I say, yes, no, maybe. And I go back, chuk, and I go to sit back on the top of the crystal. And then a few times in the night, like he must have asked a question like every half an hour or so. I hear the sound, I go down, tuk, tuk, tuk. I hear his question, I answer as quick as possible in order to come back. And then he would try to talk to me more, you know. And so it was like already at the end of the trip, like 4 or 5 hours. And he would try to immediately ask another question to keep me there with him, you know. And then I that was incredible. It's like I realized that the trip was lessening and I was losing my state. If I was staying too long with him, discussing with him, I would not remember how to leap, you know, back to the tip of the crystal. And I understood that this facet, the little facet on the bottom where I was talking with him, was my life in France at this year, you know. It was unbelievable, but all the other facets were the facets of my group soul. And myself, as a person living in France at 26 years old or whatever, I was only a tiny facet of this giant crystal. But fortunately, with the trip, I had been able, and with meditation, I had been able to sit and to merge with the entity, which was a group soul. That was incredible. That was my first experience of the group soul. But then I had other ones. And I must say, for the people who don't know, that the reality that you are able to access in a trip the trip gives you a little more of a perception, but it's exactly the same reality that you are able to reach in meditation. It's not, there are no two realities. There is only one deep reality, you know.
Yeah.
So I was able to experience the group soul in totally different types of states, like for example, just simple meditation or simple vision, you know.
Chris, have you ever read anything about the Michael Newton Institute? And Michael Newton Institute, and they've done the research on life between lives. Because your information seems to correlate with a lot that they've discovered independently about what the existence is like on the other side. There's group souls. They have a part of your stays there. Yeah, your higher self of your soul remains there. Advanced souls can send themselves down into many forms at the same time. So the soul, the more advanced, they can come into more than one incarnation. So I just wondered if you had compared notes with any of that information.
No, I don't know them. Where are they located?
Dr. Michael Newton is retired now, but I think he was out of California. But he trained hypnotherapists to take people into a deep state of progression into their life between lives. So it's more the reincarnation. They had to go into a deep, exploration of their past lives, and then they have people all over the world. So they've trained thousands of therapists. So they're reaching information through hypnosis and taking people, but no matter what their belief system, they're coming up with the same answer. So you can be Christian or Muslim, and in your human life you have these beliefs, but for a while you might see what you believe, but usually somebody comes up, your guide comes up, and he say you were a fundamentalist Christian. They're jokesters on the other side. They'll come up with a Satan's mask, and then the poor fundamentalist Christian says, "Oh no, I'm in hell," and then they pull up their mask and they laugh and they go, "Oh, it's me. I'm your guide," and everybody has a big laugh. It's really an interesting series, about 5 books. Highly recommend reading it. But it seems like you're, converging on the same information, so it's very accurate.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's good. It's like me, even if I studied read a lot of books of different religions, and I'm very, very much in accord with Hinduism and Tibetan Buddhism and Taoism and shamanism. But even so, I am not taking anything for granted until I have been able to corroborate it through different types of experiences. For example, the idea of the group soul. Oh, yeah. I had this impression that it was like that when I took this acid trip, that another facet could be somebody else, even on another planet, in another time altogether. Right. But it's only after I had 2 or 3 different views on perspective on different facets of this group soul that I finally took it as a concept, an essential concept,
I want to give our producer Debra DeFranco a chance to ask you questions or get feedback. Debra, are you there? Debra DeFranco, are you there? Hello, we can't hear you. Where are you?
Can't hear me?
Turn up your volume.
Turn up your volume or something. You're down a well.
Wait, can you hear me now?
Better.
We can hear you.
Yes.
But you're
better. Yes.
Yeah.
Eat the mic.
There we go. There's that laugh.
What question?
Yeah. What would you like to ask Chris?
So, Chris, what do you know about people who... Do you believe there are people that have never reincarnated, that only come here one time?
What is the question exactly?
Do you believe that there are people who don't reincarnate over and over and may only come here one time?
Well, I don't know. It would be, let's say that it would be kind of contrary to the idea that we progress, that if we incarnate, it's because we are using this incarnation as an experience to progress in our higher being. But I mean, if somebody comes from another, a totally different dimension, for example, and would decide to incarnate, like for example, maybe Buddha may decide to have an avatar for one incarnation or 3 or whatever number of incarnation in order to bring something to this humanity, then maybe they would do that one time. But it's possible, It's I believe that higher beings may want to come to a world at one point and try to do something very specific for that work, for that world, just to make it take a step further. either in terms of science or in terms of a kind of human spiritual evolution. It's possible.
You know, that's the story that the Urantia book says about Melchizedek, that he came once, like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have the explanation in Tibetan Buddhism, and it's very, very interesting. So let's talk about that. It's a fact that, for example, Amitabha Buddha, who is one of the highest Buddha, would have several incarnations of different bodies or entity vehicles, they call them, of himself at different levels of consciousness, awareness, and energy, frequencies. So Amitabha Buddha would have an incarnation into for example, somebody who is a leader or a spiritual leader or spiritual guru on earth. He would have also an incarnation in a different person. So this is the Tibetan Buddhism way of looking at that.
Mm-hmm.
So you have the two things. We have to look from the perspective of our humanity on Earth and how we are reincarnating and sometimes remembering. And for example, I remember some incarnation, but I remember also coming to this planet from another world.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I remember having a lot of incarnations here. So we have this, and you have the other perspective, which is from a very highly evolved being who may come even from another world or dimension, interdimensional beings who may come on a specific planet at a very specific time in order to help into a phase of awakening, for example, or a phase of change.
Now, do you think there is a connection between, when we talk interdimensional beings, could they be interdimensional beings from another planet, not necessarily on Earth? And is there a connection between them and spirits that are in the hyperdimension?
Well, the hyperdimension is cosmic. It's over the whole universe. So, of course, we have to understand that we have evolved civilizations, technologically evolved civilization, and agrarian or kind of humanoid or just animal worlds, where you have only undeveloped, let's say, in parentheses, a kind of vegetal life, even before some kind of higher animals are evolved. So you have all those, but let's talk about highly developed civilization, technologically developed civilization. And you have life is teeming in the cosmos, in the universe, in our universe bubble. First of all, it's only a bubble in an immense number of universes. but it's not random, it has the same, higher dimension, and hyperdimension all over the cosmos, which would be all those universes. So even in our universe bubble, we have beings who may be of a human or nearly human type of physiology, and we could have beings, very intelligent, technologically evolved beings that are looking totally differently. I believe that intelligence is evolved from any kind of animal phylum, and even plant phylum also. And so you have this, but anyway, whatever way it is, all those beings, intelligent beings in a body, in the material space-time, will have a higher self in the hyperdimension. So when you talk about the hyperdimension, for example, scientist I was talking about, with whom I was able to communicate, I believe this tentative explanation, I believe that when they are in the hyperdimension, they have access to of course, because there is only one hyperdimension, they have access to any kind of world, to the hyperdimensional self of all the other people of the other civilizations. So they have a large possibility of understanding those civilizations that are not human, or human but not on Earth or of Earth.
That's it. I'm passing the stick.
Did your father gain lots and lots of knowledge that he didn't have before he died, after he died, and continued to communicate with you?
Well, I believe so, but one thing I was able to perceive is that when he died, which was in 2001, he appeared just the morning after he died the morning after he died in the night, and he said, he appeared, as I said, as a head under the ceiling, and without preamble, was making a little coffee in his kitchen. I had gone down to see him, and he said, if I had known, I would have died earlier.
Oh, wow.
My father was an atheist. He was already 89 years old. He was losing his mind, and so his life was not exactly worth it in terms of, he had been a very, very cultured person, reading a lot, painting, and meanwhile he was a caterer. But it's like those last 10 years, let's say, he was not himself fully, So that's what he said. And so what I could, all these interaction around the 2 or 3 years after he died, he was still appearing under the ceiling. And lately, like last year and the year before, he appeared with my sister one time, with a group of people also. And now he was coming through the wall at a specific place behind the chimney, and all of them would come by walking, on coming toward my desk. So on having a specific order, like he would come before, and then he would when he came with a group, he would kind of let them come in after. It was so. Now, what I can say for sure is that now he's able to manage perfectly his own higher energy body, hyperdimensional body, appearance, his energy field, which he's able to take a perfect body appearance as he was, let's say around 60 or 70, and is able to walk on the floor and come in, and so he's able to manage his own field into our space-time on matter universe.
Wow.
So we both keep learning on both sides, yeah.
We have about 1 minute, you guys.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so, Chris, how do people reach you? Tell us about your website and your books.
Yes, so my website is chris-hardy, HARDY.com. So I repeat, chris-hardy.com. Chris-hardy.com. So on this website you can find my books and also the kind of session I give to help people online kind of spiritual coaching.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a delight once again.
And my book, let me repeat, it's called Living Souls in the Spirit Dimension.
Thank you so much.